In a bustling town in northern England, there was a boy named Oliver. His childhood was not filled with toys or comfort, but with constant struggle. His father worked in a factory, his mother in a bakery. They barely earned enough to put food on the table. Oliver grew up surrounded by noise, the hum of machines, the chatter of tired workers, the sound of bills being discussed late at night. From an early age, Oliver felt invisible. At school, he wasn't the top of the class. He wasn't the best at sports. Teachers barely noticed him. Friends were few. And bullies often mocked him for wearing worn-out shoes and hand-me-down clothes. Yet behind his quiet nature, a flame burned. He dreamed of creating something extraordinary, something that would make people believe in possibilities. At 11, he discovered drawing. Using scraps of paper and broken pencils, he would sketch buildings, bridges, and machines. His imagination went far beyond the walls of his small home. But when he showed his sketches, people dismissed them. Dreams don't pay bills, they said. His father, though tired and broken from long shifts, told him one night, "Son, if you love it, keep doing it. Don't let the world convince you to abandon what makes your heart beat faster." Those words became Oliver's anchor. His teenage years were brutal. He took odd jobs after school, delivering milk, cleaning shops, carrying heavy boxes to help his parents. Often exhausted, he would still stay awake until midnight, sketching by candlelight. He imagined cities of the future, machines that could change lives, and designs that could lift people out of poverty. At 16, he applied to an art and design program. He was rejected twice. On the third attempt, the admissions officer looked at his portfolio and said, "Your work is raw, but your determination is rare." That chance changed everything. University life wasn't easy. Oliver couldn't afford proper supplies. He used recycled paper, borrowed colors, and old tools. Other students laughed at him, but he ignored the noise. He remembered his father's advice: "Don't abandon what makes your heart beat faster." By the time he was 21, Oliver had created designs that were not just beautiful but practical, affordable housing models for poor communities, sustainable machines powered by simple energy. Professors started to notice. His ideas weren't polished, but they carried vision, and vision is what changes the world. Then came a crushing blow. His final year project, a design for low-cost housing, collapsed during testing. The structure couldn't hold weight. He was humiliated in front of his peers. For weeks, he considered quitting, but one night, standing by the river, he whispered to himself, "Failure is not my ending, it's my teacher." With renewed focus, he started again. He worked for months, testing, learning, correcting every flaw. Finally, his model worked strong, affordable, and revolutionary. The same people who mocked him now applauded. His project went on to win national recognition. But Oliver's journey didn't stop there. He refused to chase fame or money. Instead, he traveled to struggling communities, places where children slept on the streets, where families had no roofs. He built with them, taught them, designed with them. His hands, once calloused from carrying boxes, now built homes of hope. At 28, he was invited to speak at an international summit. Nervous, he stepped onto the stage and said, "I am not a genius. I am not the smartest in the room. I am simply someone who refused to give up on what I loved. I failed more times than I can count, but each failure became the bricks for my success. His words echoed around the hall, touching hearts, not because they were fancy, but because they were true. By 35, Oliver's work had transformed thousands of lives. He had built homes, designed tools, and created systems that gave dignity to the forgotten. Yet he remained humble, always reminding himself of that little boy sketching with broken pencils. People often asked, "How did you do it?" And he would smile and answer, "I just kept going, that's all. I kept drawing when no one cared. I kept building when things broke. I kept standing when failure pushed me down." Success is not about brilliance, it's about stubbornness in the face of doubt. Oliver's story became a testament that dreams, no matter how small, can grow into something vast if one refuses to abandon them. From a boy mocked for his shabby shoes to a man celebrated for reshaping communities, Oliver's life whispered a powerful truth. Your beginning doesn't decide your ending. Your persistence does. In the quiet countryside of Scotland, there lived a girl named Amelia. Her world was not filled with grand things. Her home was a small wooden cottage surrounded by green hills and endless skies. Her father was a shepherd, her mother a school teacher. Life was simple, modest, but also filled with invisible weight, expectations, struggles, and the quiet battle of survival. From the earliest days, Amelia's curiosity was boundless. She would watch the stars, lie in the grass at night, and wonder about the universe. While other children played games, she asked questions. Why do the stars shine? Why does the moon follow us when we walk? Why do people give up their dreams? But asking too many questions often made her an outsider. Teachers told her to stay practical. Neighbors whispered that she was strange. Friends teased her for carrying notebooks filled with strange symbols and sketches. Yet Amelia didn't stop. She felt deep in her soul that her questions mattered, that they were leading her somewhere beyond the hills. At 13, she read her first book on astronomy, borrowed from her mother's small collection. It was old, torn, with missing pages, but it unlocked a new world for her. She realized that her dreams were not foolish, they were scientific. She wanted to be an astronomer, to discover what lay beyond the visible sky. But dreams have a price. Her family could barely afford her school supplies, let alone advanced education. Many nights, her mother wept silently, fearing Amelia's dreams would break under the weight of poverty. Amelia, however, promised her mother, "I will find a way. The sky is too big for me to stay small." At 16, Amelia applied for a scholarship at a prestigious science academy. She faced rejection not once but 3 times. Letters arrived that said, "Not qualified," "Not enough background," "Not suitable." Each rejection cut deep. For weeks, she locked herself in her room, staring at the sky through her small cracked telescope. She questioned everything, her worth, her dreams, her place in the world. One evening, her father walked in. He placed his rough, weathered hands on her shoulder and said, "Child, the stars don't stop shining because clouds cover them. They shine anyway. Be like the stars." Those words reignited her. She studied harder than ever, teaching herself advanced physics through borrowed books, free resources, and endless nights of trial and error. She failed countless times. Equations made no sense, experiments collapsed, but she kept going. Finally, at 19, she earned admission on merit to the very academy that had once rejected her. The first months were overwhelming. Surrounded by students from wealthy, educated families, she felt out of place. Her clothes were plain, her accent rural, her knowledge self-taught. She was laughed at, ignored, underestimated. But Amelia carried silence like a shield. Instead of speaking, she worked. She spent long hours in labs, longer nights under telescopes. Her dedication began to bear fruit. Professors noticed her determination. She asked bold questions no one else dared to ask. One day, during a research discussion, she challenged a theory that had been accepted for decades. Students laughed. Professors raised eyebrows. But Amelia presented her calculations, her evidence, her unshakable belief. That moment changed everything. She wasn't dismissed anymore. She was debated, respected, listened to. At 23, Amelia made her first breakthrough, discovering an unusual star pattern that suggested the presence of a new type of celestial phenomenon. Her work was published in a small journal, though not world famous. For her it was proof she belonged in the world of science. But the journey didn't smoothen overnight. She faced sexism, elitism, constant questioning of her capability. Grants were denied, institutions favored others, yet she pressed forward. Every no became fuel. Every failure became data. Every doubt became determination. By 30, Amelia had traveled the world, working in observatories, studying the universe. She discovered not just stars but also the strength within herself. She built a name not by luck, not by privilege, but by relentless persistence. When she returned to her village years later, she wasn't the poor shepherd's daughter anymore. She was Dr. Amelia Clark, a scientist recognized internationally. Children gathered around her, asking the same questions she once asked. Parents whispered her name with pride, and her mother, with tears in her eyes, said, "You kept your promise. You found your way." Amelia smiled and replied, "I didn't find the way. I made the way." Her story became a symbol for dreamers everywhere, that your origin does not define your destination, and that even the smallest cottage can give rise to a mind that reaches the stars. Amelia's life whispered a truth across generations. Never let rejection be the final word. Write your own chapter, no matter how many pages they tear out. In the heart of London, beneath the noise of traffic and the glow of street lamps, a boy named Daniel was born. His life began in a neighborhood where opportunity was scarce, where dreams were often traded for survival. His parents worked tirelessly, his mother as a nurse, his father as a bus driver. They gave everything they could, yet money always seemed to vanish before the end of each month. Daniel grew up watching his parents struggle. He saw the tiredness in their eyes, the way they hid their worries to keep hope alive. At school, he wasn't the brightest student. Teachers told him, "You're average at best." Friends teased him for being slow, for stuttering when he spoke. At 12, he believed them. He thought he was destined for mediocrity. But one day, something changed. His teacher asked the class to give short speeches about their heroes. When it was Daniel's turn, he froze. His hands shook, his voice cracked. Laughter filled the room. He sat down, humiliated. That night, he told his father, "I'll never speak in front of people again." His father, who rarely spoke much, looked at him and said, "Son, the thing that scares you the most is usually the thing you are meant to conquer." Those words struck deep. Daniel decided he would face his fear. He started small, reading aloud in his room, recording himself on an old phone, listening to every mistake. At first, his stutter made him want to quit, but instead of quitting, he practiced harder. Every night, while others played games, Daniel trained his voice. He read books, copied great speeches, stood in front of a mirror for hours. By 15, he gave his first voluntary talk in school. His voice still shook, but he didn't stop. Some laughed, but a few clapped. That tiny clap was enough fuel to keep him going. Years passed. Daniel joined a public speaking club. He failed miserably at his first competition, forgetting lines, sweating on stage. But unlike before, he didn't hide. He told himself, I will return. For the next 3 years, he devoted himself to the craft. He studied famous orators, Churchill, Martin Luther King Jr., Mandela. He practiced tone, pauses, body language. Slowly, he transformed. At 19, Daniel entered another competition. This time, he stood tall, his voice steady. He spoke about resilience, about how fear is not an enemy but a compass. When he finished, the hall erupted in applause. He won second place. It wasn't first, but it was proof he was no longer the boy who hid behind silence. But life doesn't reward without testing. At 21, his father passed away unexpectedly. The loss shattered him. For weeks, he couldn't speak at all. He felt broken, questioning why he should keep chasing a dream when his biggest supporter was gone. One night, sitting by the old bus his father used to drive, he remembered the words, "The thing that scares you the most is the thing you are meant to conquer." Daniel realized his father's voice lived on inside him. With renewed determination, he returned to speaking this time, not for trophies, but for purpose. He started giving free talks in community centers, schools, even prisons. His story of fear, failure, and persistence resonated with people who thought they had no future. By 25, he became one of the youngest motivational speakers invited to international conferences. He traveled, shared his message, stood on stages he once only dreamed of. His stutter was not fully gone, but now it became his strength. People listened not because he was perfect, but because he was real. At 30, Daniel founded an organization to help young people overcome fear, whether of speaking, failing, or dreaming. Thousands benefited from his workshops. Parents who once doubted him now proudly pointed him out on TV. When asked how he did it, Daniel smiled and said, "I took my biggest weakness and turned it into my greatest strength. I stopped running from fear and started running with it." His life became a reminder that being average doesn't mean being powerless, and that the very thing that once humiliates you can become the reason the world remembers you. From a boy mocked for stuttering to a man whose words moved nations, Daniel proved one truth. Fear is not a wall, it's a doorway. In a small industrial town in northern England, a boy named Ethan grew up among smoke-filled skies and streets, echoing with the clang of machinery. His father worked long hours in a steel factory. His mother cleaned offices. Money was always short, and hope seemed like a luxury no one could afford. Ethan was not born brilliant. In school, he struggled with reading, numbers confused him, and teachers marked him as slow. His classmates mocked him, calling him useless. At 10 years old, he started to believe them. He thought he was destined to follow his father's path, working endless shifts in the factory, breaking his body for a wage that was never enough. But Ethan's story didn't end there. One winter evening, when the family couldn't afford heating, Ethan sat shivering in a blanket and found an old book his mother had saved from a rubbish bin. The pages were torn, but it was filled with stories of inventors, scientists, and dreamers, reading about people who had started with nothing yet changed. The world lit something inside him. For the first time, Ethan realized, I don't have to accept the life I was handed. From that night, he began to dream not of escaping work, but of creating something meaningful. He started tinkering with scrap metal and broken gadgets from the neighborhood, using discarded wires, old batteries, and imagination. He built tiny machines that amazed children on his street. Most adults dismissed it as a waste of time. But one neighbor, an old mechanic named Mr. Harris, saw potential. You got hands of an inventor, Mr. Harris told him. Don't waste them. Encouraged, Ethan started spending evenings in Mr. Harris's workshop. He learned how engines worked, how electricity flowed, how problems could be solved with patience and creativity. By 15, Ethan dreamed of becoming an engineer, but his grades were terrible, and no university would accept him. He applied anyway, rejected again and again. Each rejection letter felt like a hammer striking his heart. His classmates laughed. You, an engineer, you can't even spell properly. But Ethan refused to give up. He worked nights in a warehouse to save money, and during the day he taught himself from free online lectures, second-hand books, and sheer trial and error. For years, he lived in exhaustion, working, studying, failing, and trying again.